I'm here with another recommendations with a twist video, which I've only done once before, but I'm doing another one. And it is recommendations for younger readers with a twist, because it's also, I guess I could also call this video, if you can't read this, try this instead. I'm not recommending better versions of books, but I'm recommending less dense and maybe younger versions of books, if that makes sense. So I'll leave the first video that I did in the corner for you, and I'll give an example from one of the recommendations in that video was if you hear a lot about people reading saga and you're really intrigued and you really want to read it, but you're not comfortable reading about or looking at the violence and the sex in it, that maybe you should try Amulet instead. So I'm doing another one of these videos. So the first comparison that I have is Mistborn and Shadow and Bone. So, if you have heard a lot of people talking about Mistborn and you have either tried reading it but couldn't get into it because the world and the story and the politics was too dense for you, or it was boring because of the politics or a lot of the older characters, anything like that was too difficult for you to get into, but you were still wishing you could have read it or read something like this because the world intrigues you or the storyline intrigues you, then you should pick up Shadow and Bone by Leigh Bardugo. I think that Mistborn and Shadow and Bone actually have very similar concepts. So they're both about a world in which people exist who have magical abilities, and it's a smaller population of the world that have these magical abilities, and if you have a magical ability, you basically only have one out of a bunch of possible abilities. So there's a bunch of people that have abilities, but they each specialize in something different. And then comes along this cool girl who turns out she's got a really strong ability, and she can basically save the world. So that's like a huge part of the premise of both of these. And I just feel like Shadow and Bone is a lot better for younger readers, first of all, because it is YA, but it's also really light. Mistborn is dense. First of all, it's long. It doesn't look that long. It's very deceiving. This book is almost 700 pages. And the writing style, the world building, there's like politics stuff in it as well. It's very heavy. It's not like heavy because there's a lot of like really dark stuff happening, but it's not something that you can take lightly and read through quickly. It's definitely something that you have to really focus on and spend time on. And if that's something that you have trouble with, either because you're a younger reader or because you just have trouble focusing on those types of stories, then Shadow and Bone will basically be better for you. The world building, the writing style, everything is very light and airy. I read this in a day. It's a very, very light fantasy. Like, it's descriptive, but in a very simple way. The writing is very easy to get through very quickly. Shadow and Bone is definitely a better option if you're a younger reader, or if you are put off by very long, heavy, dense, political fantasy stories. My next recommendation, or comparison, is The Kiss Quotient by Helen Hoang and The Felon Boyfriend by Casey West. So, if you've heard a lot about The Kiss Quotient, and you really wanted to read it for yourself, but you picked it up and you didn't realize just how sexually explicit it was, and that's not something for you, then you should read The Felon Boyfriend by Casey West. Because they're basically the same premise, except one is about adults and one is about teenagers. So The Kiss Quotient is about someone who hires a prostitute to pretend to be her boyfriend. And The Felon Boyfriend is about someone who convinces someone to pretend to be her boyfriend for prom. So it's got that same cute fake relationship trope where, you know, you're pretending at first, but then, oh my goodness, I'm not pretending anymore. Is the person that I'm with still pretending? How do I know if he actually likes me back? Because I like him back, but I'm afraid to say something because what if he's still pretending? Same thing happening in both of these books. But this one is a lot lighter, and there's no sex in it. Or prostitutes. If you have heard a lot of people talking about the comic series Giant Days, and you have tried reading it, or you're not interested in it because it's about people who are in university and living on their own and dealing with a few more adult-ish things, And I feel like this is more of a recommendation for like actual younger readers, like 11-year-olds who can't connect to maybe older characters who are away at university and stuff like that. Then you should try Awkward by Svetlana Chmakova. I'm comparing it, first of all, because this is a graphic novel. Giant Days is a comic, but you can buy them in basically graphic novel form because you can get them in the bind-ups. But this, I'm comparing this one because of the comic style, and also because this takes place in a school. It's middle school, but it's in school, and it follows someone inside and outside of school, but it revolves that school thing and all of the things that come with it. It's very cute. It's got a cute little friendship story in it, and it's adorable. And I believe that there are actually a bunch of graphic novels that I don't know if they take place in the same school or if I don't think they're about the same people, but I think they all take place in middle school and they're all the same style and everything. So there's a bunch of them that you could read. But definitely, if you're a younger reader, you wanted to get into some comics and you really liked Giant Days, but it's kind of boring for you because of the more adult content, then check out Awkward. The last recommendation that I have is Sleeping Giants by Sylvain Neuvel. If you really liked the idea of science fiction stuff, giant robots, and the story being told in interviews, if that really intrigued you, but again, it's about adults. There's a lot of adult problems happening. If that's something you have a hard time connecting with, or if you're just not interested in it, or if the style you thought would be fun but then turns out is not, because it's like laid out kind of boring. It's like transcript interview style. And if it's something you really wanted to like but you couldn't, you should try Illuminae instead, because it's also science fiction. There aren't like big giant robots, but there's an AI in it, and it's in space, and it also has interviews and stuff, but they're like, I feel like they're more interactive. I feel like the wrong word to use, but they're less boring, the formatting. So if you're more of a younger reader, this might be easier for you to like and catch on to and enjoy and find fun. Also, it's about teenagers, so you might like that a little bit better if you're a teenager and that's something that you can relate to more. So I would try Illuminae instead and see how you like that. So those are my recommendations with a twist. Obviously, these also go the other way. If you've read the younger versions of these books that I recommended and you're looking for something with a similar story or a similar concept, but you're wanting to dive deeper into something that's a little bit denser or something a little bit more intense, then totally check out the older versions of the books. You'll probably love them too. Also, if you're not a younger reader and you're just looking for a type of book that's lighter and easier to read, then you're totally allowed to love the younger versions that I've recommended as well, because I've read them all and I have loved them. So I hope this was a fun video for you. I hope it helped you, and if it didn't help you in any way because you don't need help with these things, then I hope you still enjoyed the video. Have a good day. Bye.